Welcome everybody. My name is Nathan Kibarian. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm currently working as a pastry chef. Been doing it for as long as I can remember, at least 10, 12 years now. Today I'm going to show you how to make a traditional Ajarakan Khachapuri. It's technically not Armenian, however, it is a specialty that my grandmother makes us every time we visit her in LA, and today I'm going to show you her recipe. So first, to make the dough, if you have a hook on the KitchenAid mixer, that's kind of what you want to go for. And you can just put everything into the bowl. So first you're going to start with 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, or you can use bread flour too. Both of them will work in the recipe. And just a heavy pinch of salt. So that you can just put in the bowl. Have 1 cup of room temperature to warm milk. And you're going to just sprinkle the yeast on top. It's about 2 teaspoons of yeast, roughly one of the standard packets you can use. Or if you buy it in bulk, it's about 2 teaspoons. Just sprinkle that in first, let it sit. So while that's sitting, you're going to also add 1/3 cup of olive oil. And go straight into the mixer. The yeast and the milk, just give it a quick stir. You just want to wet the yeast so that it fully dissolves once you put it into the dry ingredients here. So pour all that in, make sure you scrape out all the good stuff. There we go. And finally, you're going to add 1 tablespoon of just regular granulated sugar. All right. Just add the hook. Now you're going to mix it on low speed first until it picks up everything. And then the dough starts to pull away from the mixing bowl. All right, once that's done, should be a nice, slightly warm dough. Just the mixing of it will warm it up, and then that'll help later so it rises quickly. So after this point, you're going to just knead it a few times on the table. And how you're doing that is you're pressing the dough forward, pulling it back, and you give it a 90-degree turn. So quickly, it's pushing forward and then pulling back with your left hand if you're right-handed. So push forward, pull back. Then you get to this point, and you can round it out. So what I'm doing here is pushing with my left hand, actually pulling with the left hand, pushing with the right. So it'll stick to the table on the bottom, but what you want to do is have a smooth surface. I'm going to flour it a little bit more. Pull back. Have a nice round dough here. I'm going to just elongate it a little bit. So this will get about 2 to 3 khachapuri. You can cut it after it rises. So I'll set that off to the side. I have one here that I've already made. So after you let the dough rise for about 15 to 25 minutes, it depends on how warm your kitchen is. It goes pretty quick. The dish I had oiled and sprayed, just so it makes it a lot easier to pop out. So at this point, dough's nice and warm, started to rise. I'm going to make 2 large khachapuri out of this one. So just cut it in half. The less you handle this dough, the better. So that way it doesn't tighten and pull in while you're baking it. The more you handle dough, the more it develops it. And then that way it goes from being a nice soft and chewy crust to something that's really tough. Have very little flour on the surface. Everything's going to be by hand. You could use a rolling pin, but I don't really find the need to. So you're just pressing it out. From this point, you're going to add the cheese to it. The mix of cheese I'm using, it's a little bit of everything. There's Parmesan, cheddar, mozzarella, and also I'm using a hard Greek cheese just to add a little bit more salt to it. You can use whatever your favorite pizza cheeses are. You just want something that's high in salt, something that melts very well, something that's nice and stretchy so that you can kind of dip into it with the pieces that you're ripping out near the end. So you put a nice, I'll call it the baseline of cheese. And then a good amount of butter. And you can just kind of piece that in. So that's about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of butter. A good amount of cheese. You want so that once you close it up a little bit, all the cheese kind of spreads into the dough, and each bite in the end will have some cheese in it. So from here, you're going to just close it up. So just gently bring in the sides. So it'll open up when it's baking a little bit, but you want it to kind of look like a pocket, a little boat, if you will. Essentially, that's just the shape you're getting here. And just pinch the edges. That's the khachapuri here. So then what I do is I'll bake it on a sheet pan with some parchment paper, and I'll lightly spray it, just extra precaution so it doesn't stick, because there's a lot of cheese and there's a lot of moisture. And then you'll be egg washing it later too. So once it's in, and pat it out. Everyone kind of does it in a different shape, but this is the way I like it. It gives a lot of surface area for the cheese to brown once you're baking it, and then later, halfway through the baking process, you're going to crack an egg on it too. So then it's like a sunny side up built into this. So we'll do the second one. And add some more butter.
Can you tell us a little bit about the dish and maybe when your grandma taught you how to make it?
Sure. So this dish, again, like I said, it's traditionally Georgian. However, it's kind of like my grandmother's specialty. Greta Nene from LA, if you're watching this, you can take all the credit. So they live in LA, we live in Boston. My mom, who Greta Nene is her mom, she moved to Boston when she got married. But every summer we would go visit them, and then, she would make this. We'd get off the plane. It could be 2 a.m. coming off the plane. It could be 6 a.m. Whenever the time we'd land. We'd get to the house, and there would be khachapuri waiting for us in some way. I don't know how she did it, but every single time we'd come off the plane, get stuck in LA traffic, get to the house. By the time we're done unpacking everything and putting it away, there was like half a dozen already lined up and ready to go for us. But the cool thing that I learned once I got older, khachapuri comes from many different parts of Georgia, and they each have their own version of it. Acharagan khachapuri is this style, and once I got older, I went to Armenia too, and I forget the name of the place, but went there with some friends, and they'll serve this with like a huge stein of cold beer too. Like I think it was Gyumri or Gilikia or something. But this with some beer on the side is like the greatest lunch you can ever have, just chilling with your friends. Or even at 2 a.m. Yeah, as long as you're not watching your weight, because there's no hope once you eat this. So these two are ready. So these will just sit. Once you've shaped the khachapuri, just let it sit at room temp off to the side somewhere, again, 15 to 25 minutes. It doesn't need to proof as much as, another type of bread. Because it has all this filling in it, it's going to be weighted down. So you're not looking for a huge rise. You just want to kind of find its own and relax. So these ones are pretty close to being done. So how you can tell if it's done is if you press lightly, the dough will slowly rise back. If it springs back too quickly, and again, I can't really time it. I don't, like 2 to 5 seconds, I'd say is good. If the dough fills back that spot within 2 to 5 seconds, it means that it's risen enough. If it's a lot quicker than that, it means the dough is still tight and it still wants to stretch. So I'd say about another 5 minutes, but in the meantime, you can egg wash it. So you'll egg wash it twice. This first time you do it, the egg wash will kind of dry, and the second time you do it, it'll add a second layer, and then once it's baked, it's going to get a really nice, rich, thick crust. Okay, so you can just press this out a little bit more. By pressing out the middle while it's proofed, what you're doing is you're deflating the bottom so that you're kind of creating a channel so that later the sides here will rise up in the oven, and it'll create a shallow area here where the egg will go. So now once the khachapuri has sit for a few more minutes, you can add the second layer of egg wash to it, and then we can bake it from there. Make sure a baking temperature is at 350 in a convection oven. If you have a regular oven, a conventional oven, preheat it to 375 to 400 degrees. That'll give it enough, a good enough bump of heat so that it can rise and fill into itself. So you just want to coat all the sides. Anywhere that's exposed though, you want to egg wash it so that it'll have a nice shine. Anything covered with cheese, you can just leave alone because the cheese will melt and take up that space. So at this point, another little special thing I'll add to it is going to be a homemade sujuk. This recipe is my Sarkis recipe. So it's the Armenian spice sausage. And he passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, but I've kind of kept the tradition going by making his recipe. Very heavily spiced. I think there's at least 10 spices in here. And again, what I like about khachapuri is that it's very customizable. Sometimes we'll add basturma to it or just cold cuts or whatever else we have. So the base recipe is kind of the traditional, what you have here of the cheese and the butter and the egg eventually, and you can just add in your mix-ins. Essentially, it's a pizza. So just a few pieces here. And this one I'll leave plain. So now we'll put it into bake. So you want to bake it about 10 to 15 minutes until it starts to get golden brown. And then you can take it out, add the egg to it, crack the eggs on top, and then you'll finish it off until the egg starts to just set. From that point, just cook it as much as you want your egg cooked. If you like it extremely runny, you can crack the egg open on it at the very end, or you get the picture. Okay, so now the khachapuri has been in the oven for about 15 minutes. It's got some really good color on it. I did it that way. I really like a really, really runny egg, so just until the white's cooked. So just make sure you have something on the counter. Protect the countertop. These are nice and golden brown. So at this point, you want to press in all this nice ooey gooey cheese and make a little spot for your egg. Same with this one. Oh yeah, look at that. It's like my favorite thing ever. Alright, so just break the egg on top. I'm going to add 2 eggs to these. I think we've worked hard enough today. We can really eat. Oh, yeah. And then top with just a little bit of cheese. So this you're going to pop back into the oven just until the egg white cooks. All right, at this point, the khachapuri's been in the oven for another 3 to 5 minutes. Oh yeah. Of course, at this point, you want to add more cheese because why not? And just let that sit for a few more minutes, but you want to eat this while it's really, really hot. Give it a nice home on here. Just transfer it over like this. Thank you. Paria Khorjak. I hope you guys enjoy. Let us know if you make this dish at home, if you like it, and I'd love to hear any suggestions from you guys too. This is a dish that goes back in my family, but every family makes it themselves and kind of continues the tradition. So it would be great to hear back from you guys. Thank you.
Welcome to Learn the Dish.
My name is Miran.
My name is Ani.
My name is Silva.
The best way to get to know a people is through their food.
Today I'm going to show you how to make tabbouleh.
I'm going to show you how to make mantı.
One of our specialties here is Armenian coffee.
We're building a community to share the traditional dishes just like your grandma used to make.
Everybody would come and ask me for mantı.
Always super proud to serve here.
Come with us. Share your recipes too. And maybe learn the dish.
Enjoy.